Hey guys, welcome to Jerry's Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean, and today is episode JL126. We apologize for having some trouble getting on Facebook at first, so we are kind of waiting till both platforms were live. We've got really loud storms going through this area, so just in case there's an issue, we'll try to come back on, or if it starts getting noisy, we're gonna just muddle through it and do the best we can. Today's episode is Turner Acrylic Gouache. We are going to talk about how to paint an eye, but clearly I've got a little bit of an issue going on here. I did explain it to our group, but I know some of you guys that watch are not in our Jerry's Live Facebook group. This is why I don't like cats. Actually, we've been feeding some local little feral cats in an attempt to trap them to spay and neuter them, and I had one run between my legs as I was going down brick stairs, and I took a tumble. So I hopefully will be better in a few weeks, but for today, we're going to kind of ease into this episode. Since we had seeded all of those freebies, the whites and the blacks, the really beautiful the really beautiful jet black. I'm so used to saying jumbo jet black with the pencils. We're going to kind of take some time to explain really truly what acryl gouache is, because we've had so many new people watch the show. As we kind of ease into it, and then towards the end of the show, we're going to talk about the eye. We're going to draw the eye on our panel, and then next week we'll do the step-by-step for that, just because that part's going to be really hard for me right now. Hopefully it will be much easier next week. So if you're playing along at home and you want to see the products that we're using for this show, you'll type in JL126 in the search bar at the top of the jerrysartorama.com website. That's JL126. That will give you the list of the smart set, the brushes, and one other item that we are using. And then I also have listed on the document that's linked to that, what the different color family pages are for some of like the metallics and the luminescent colors and things like that I'm going to show you that make this line very unique and different. So let's talk about gouache itself. Gouache basically means matte and opaque. Now there are a few kind of contradictions to this rule within the Turner color line to be able to get those refractive qualities with the metallics. And some of the pearl colors and the Lumi colors, they do put more resin in it to make it so that the colors are suspended and get that nice metallic, and the mica kind of gives that refraction to it so it sparkles. Otherwise, their color line is matte and it's opaque, but it's acrylic. So people always want to know, what is the difference between when they just hear gouache and then they hear acrylic gouache? Gouache typically means design gouache. Design gouache is a matte watercolor gouache that a lot of designers used to use for anything from fashion to the automotive industry to illustration, where you could work in watercolor. It would dry relatively quickly. It was nice and matte and reproduced really well with photography that kept nice crisp colors. The biggest kind of issue with that back then was that all of the colors weren't necessarily light fast long term, but because it was used for design work where the design was the end goal, not necessarily a piece of art to, for the ages, that wasn't that big of a deal. So taking that, that matteness and that beautiful opacity where you're not having to put as many layers, Turner came up with an acrylic gouache. So what that means it's heavy on the pigments. So, and it's got pacifiers in it, which are inert pigments, which basically means it's something where it gives you some extra pigment and body that makes that color nice and opaque and thick so that you can't see through it like watercolors. But then it's got a little bit of acrylic resin in it, so it makes it water resistant. It makes it so that you can layer colors after they dry and you don't have things lifting like watercolor design gouache does. 236 colors as of the last time I knew in the Turner line. That's an incredible amount of colors in any line, but in acrylic gouache, it's fantastic. what is acrylic gouache good for versus just regular traditional acrylic? Well, if you do any journaling, the resins in traditional acrylic tend to want to stick to each other unless they've been out and exposed for, you know, the time that it needs to actually cure. You don't have that issue with the acrylic gouache because it's very low on resin, so there's not that stickiness to it, but high on pigment, so you don't have to add a lot of layers to build color to get a really nice effect very quickly. So it's ideal for people that want to do journaling. It's ideal for illustrators that want to work quickly, that don't want to deal with the lift of watercolor gouache. Are we having some problems with the...
We're trying to get sound working on YouTube. It's
Okay.
not cooperating. So.
All right. Sorry, guys. They're going to work on it. I'm not sure what the issue is. So, anyway, and they're, you know, it's nice tubes. It's very brushable. You can use it flat. You don't need an easel. You don't need the longer brushes for it. And it comes in 236 colors. So more colors than you need to do anything really easily. So let's kind of look at some of the properties of it. I put some black paper over the table here because I thought that would be the easiest way. So as we're kind of talking about it, to see what the difference is with opacity, see what the difference is with kind of the brushability, the mixability. The beauty of this is you don't need a bunch of mediums like you would traditional acrylic. You thin it at a rate of 2 to 1. So, and you don't need to paint thick. You actually don't want to paint thick. Acrylic gouache, because it doesn't have a lot of resin, it's not as flexible as traditional acrylic. So that means if you really use it thick, you're going to have issues with cracking. So you do want to thin it down, which makes that paint go really, really far. Now, then the other thing with it is you don't want to use a flexible surface unless you do add a medium to make it more flexible. So you want to use panels, you want to use boards, you can paint on rocks, you can paint on glass, on polystyrene, anything that you can think of that's a hard surface, this will attach itself to. And glass is something that a lot of people can't use with acrylic and oils because it wants to lift, not so with acrylic gouache. So it's the perfect medium for all of those types of kind of surfaces. So I'm going to take a little bit of the white and the jet black, which is what you guys got. Now, the nice thing about this is you can really play with it to see what the opacity of the white is, and then also the opacity of that black. I'm just going to, for ease of use, put them on here, and then we'll paint them on the black and the white surfaces here. And if anybody has any questions, ladies, as this goes, just snag me when you can, okay? So I'm going to paint the same swatch with the white on both this whiteboard right next to it and then the blackboard. So here's our white. See how nice and opaque that is? That just goes right on. And you can see that right away. Katie, can you switch to the, Thank you.
Sorry, we're still
I forgot.
working on issues.
No, I know. I realized after the fact. I was like, I did not tell her.
I think we're good though.
We should be good.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
No
Okay.
idea what happened, but we should be good.
So here's the black going on the black. You can actually see that. It's a little bit darker than the black of the thing. Look how super rich and thick that black is. Just with that thin coating. It's not as easy to grab a whole bunch of supplies all around me with the... Can everybody see how, oh my gosh, that is like crazy opaque. Wow. They can't see as easily over this. This is actually blacker than the Stonehenge black paper. That's amazing.
If you push it up just a little bit, I can zoom in a little bit closer.
Okay. I don't know if I can push this paper up.
Okay,
This is, you pull this one a little bit. I don't have the ability to, I can move this up. Just take that paper right there. This paper. Yeah, there we go. Sorry.
Is it attached to them?
Nope. Ta-da. There we go.
Can you see over my head where it's going?
A little bit further. Okay, good. All right. So I've got those right next to each other. Just a few coats, and this is already dry to the touch for the majority. There's a couple little areas. That's the other beauty of acrylic gouache. It dries super crazy fast, which is fantastic if you're trying to meet a deadline. Amanda, did you have a question?
I did. Can you mix them with fluid acrylics?
Okay, so acrylic gouache, what she's asked is, can you mix this with fluid acrylics? It's still an acrylic base, so you can mix, but your issue is you're going to have to make sure it's thinned down because, again, you can have issues with cracking, and you have to understand this is super opaque with very limited resin in it. Adding it to a fluid acrylic, there's a lot of resin in that fluid acrylic to still make it acrylic so that it's not like a watercolor, right? It's designed specifically to be nice and thin like that, but you're adding it to something that's got more resin, which is going to start making this more transparent. So that's the biggest issue with using these with other acrylics, is you're going to have some issues struggling with the properties of each. That's kind of one of the reasons why this would be, if you're going to want to use this with acrylics, this like regular heavy-bodied acrylics, this would be better as you're underpainting, because you don't have to paint as many layers because the colors are opaque, right? So you're not having to put 2, 3, potentially 4 layers on of a more transparent or semi-transparent heavy-bodied color. So it fills in that color gap, but then you can put those heavy-bodied acrylics on over the top of it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at kind of maybe some of the different color families so you can see them on the black and also see them on the white. And real quick, this is from above, so let's see if this will,
Ready to zoom?
yeah, if you can pull out of there for just a second. Okay, so this was done for a Jerry's bag design that we did for the retail stores, because it was something that needed to be done on a very short notice. It needed to dry quickly. It needed to have really bright colors that popped. So I used the Turner Acryl Gouache for this. So all of this is done with that on illustration board, which is firm, but it's somewhat flexible. But it's not had any problems with being lifted and carried around because the paint was thinned down nicely like it's supposed to be. So why that matteness is important, why wouldn't it be okay for gloss? Because this translates with photography immediately into a print design where you're not having reflections for the photographer to have to deal with and go into Photoshop. This is something where they can snap the picture and take it right to the design portion of working, rather than have to fight what that's been done with. Amanda, was there another question?
Yeah. Back when you were talking about mixing and you said a 2-to-1 ratio paint with water, that is 2 paint, 1 water.
Yes.
Say that.
Yes, I'm sorry. So 2 parts paint, 1 part water when you're doing that 2-to-1 ratio.
And then
Sorry, I should have specified that.
it's important to use it on a less flexible surface than paper or
Right.
canvas because
That's
it'll
what
crack.
I said at the beginning, is that, and if you're going to use it on paper, make sure it's a thicker paper, like a watercolor paper, like 140 pound or above. And it wouldn't hurt to give it a little bit of gesso on it too, just to kind of help strengthen that paper and make it a little stiffer. It's fine if you're thinning it really well, because it shouldn't be a problem with a heavier paper like that. But that's just something to be aware of. Now, conversely, you can use it on a thinner paper. Just mount the paper on like a foam core board first, just a thin foam core, and then you've got something that's flexible, that's actually mounted on something that's stiff, so that you'll be able to use that easily. All right, we're gonna move to the next thing. Let's try some of these color families. All right, so the luminescent colors, what that essentially is fluorescent, right? So we're gonna put some of these up here. What do you think, 2 or 3 colors of each? Ladies?
Yep.
So they can see the big pop.
That orangey red is my favorite.
Yeah, that's this one, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I like it. Woo. He sizzles my eyeball. All right. So.
We should have brought the black light.
Oh yeah. And on the Turner page, there's artwork that's been done with this.
Can you use it over toned gesso?
Yeah, you could, because this is opaque, right? So that's going to be fine. Now you can see with these, because the fluorescent isn't a super opaque pigment, you may need to do over something that's really dark like this black 2 coats. The artwork that's on the Turner page that I did, that's of like a day-glow dog, I think I put 2 thin coats was all I needed, and I know that I was working on Bristol board for that.
I find the fluorescent, the LeMay colors need a little less water than some of the other ones.
Yes.
Something about the pigment.
I'm just thinning it down because I'm always so paranoid about stuff cracking.
Mm-hmm.
But see how nice and bright that is? Then let's do Katie's favorite.
I love that one.
Gouge your eyeballs out. Yeah, that one's nice and super bright.
I'm assuming these are fugitive.
Yes, because the fluorescents are fugitive pigments. Over time, that's going to, she asked if these were fugitive, which fluorescents are to varying degrees. Now, it's something where if you varnish it and give it a little bit of a top coat where there's some reflection and you're storing it somewhere or hanging the artwork somewhere where it's not getting a lot of direct light, like indirect light, it being lamps, not sunlight, something can like have a longer shelf life, but just over time, yes, that's going to disappear. That's why I'm always telling people varnish, varnish. Okay, now there are these colors that are just called pearl, and what these are interference colors. Okay, can we kind of come back, there we go.
So we can pull it up a little more?
Yeah, we're gonna have to move it over actually. Here. Yeah, just. Well. There we go. Yay. Okay. Yeah, slide it up. Okay. All right.
Sorry, I need a little assistance this time.
Yes. All right, so with these pearl colors like this, that are the pearl interference, there's 2 types. They not thinking, because this is from Japan, so this is a second language naming. They call pearl and then pearlescent colors. Not the same thing. One is that's just called pearl itself is a pearl interference color. This is the lilac. Now that you can see really well on black, right? Look at on white. You don't get that same effect. Isn't that crazy? See how it disappears on the white? It's because from my angle, I can see it just a little bit. It's reflecting when it's not gonna work wet. You're not gonna be able to see it.
No.
You can see a little bit.
A little bit.
Okay, so now this is something, I did an artwork on white with it for the page. I've built up 3 or 4 layers, and you could actually see there's like a lilac, a red, I think a yellow, and a blue. But I really liked how it looked, and you can, I mean, look how beautiful that is on that black. That's just gorgeous. So,
You can layer that one over top of.
yes, you can put it over another color, over just the regular matte colors. And get that shine, definitely. So.
Was that one of the Japonesque?
No, that's not Japonesque.
Someone has a question about those.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Japonesque in a few minutes. So, because that's another very curious color family that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. All right, so metallics. I've got 3 metallics here. Katie, at the end of this, if you go to a regular shot straight ahead of me, I've got that big metallic.
Okay.
Now the metallics are not going to be, because they've got to have that resin to suspend the mica pigments in it, they're not going to be initially opaque, right? you're gonna have to put a couple coats, especially if you're doing it on white. It's gonna show up a little bit better on black. I feel like I need to burp this one. There we go.
Does heavier pigment settle a little bit more?
Yeah.
than others?
Yes, and I think this was in my office, like upside down, where it was, the mica probably flowed to the back. Okay, so we've got some copper. Everybody's favorite. Okay, so this is the straight up metallic. Now the Japonesque also does the metallic colors, and they use the same pigment, but we'll talk about the Japonesque and what the big difference is between the two. All right, so that was copper. The other one here we're gonna look at is gold light. There's multiple colors of gold, so you can see that pretty well. Look how bright that is. I mean, that's opaque almost completely over that black. That's fantastic. All right, and then the next color is antique silver. Okay, so that's almost like a pewter to me, but look how that pops on black. Isn't that nice? Very pretty. Okay, can you show just a straightforward shot real quick? Okay, excuse the mat. This has been in what I like to refer to as the spider storage room. But that's using all the colors of metallic. See how shiny that is? That was 2 coats each on white. If I'd done this on black, I might have been able to get away with 1 coat, but I wanted to see truly how opaque it was as far as the coverage. But it is not matte because it's a metallic, right? So it needs to kind of refract that shine. But it was so easy to work with, and then the outline is done in just the jet black with 1 coat and a very small liner brush. Okay, so that was the metallic. Let's switch this over. I'm gonna take another page and put it next to, leave like room right here. Yeah, that's not gonna work over the, here, let's do we have room to go to the above camera for a minute? I'll see if there's room to go to the side of it. Okay, if I leave this here, let's do this. Okay, and then I can go right next to it. How's that? All right, so the next one we're gonna look at are the pearlescent colors. Okay, now the pearlescent colors are the actual color pearl is what they call them, all right? Which seems like it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's, I'm gonna pick just a couple. There's a mint, which is kind of a turquoisey color. There is this beautiful violet. I'm gonna do 4 of these because these are some of my favorite. They're just very pretty. Okay, and the last color is my very favorite, which is the indigo. So let's put these over here. We'll do that mint first. Now again, these have mica in it for the sheen, so they're not going to be absolutely opaque. But you can see with just a couple strokes, look how pretty that is. It really shows up on the white super nicely. Okay, the violet. We having problems with it going in and out again? Hold on,
Yeah,
guys.
it's fine. I mean,
Some more paper towel. All right, here is the color pearl pink. Oh, need to burp that one. There we go. It's a very pretty light pink. That doesn't show up as well in the
blue is beautiful.
black. The indigo, yeah, this is my favorite. I did a whole background color and a now I'm gonna try to take it and lift it to see the, okay, can you see the shimmer with it? Yes. See that shimmer? You can see the reflection of that.
Keep that in the middle, I can see it.
Okay, hold on. Now the one thing you do need to pay attention to, and I think we've said this on other shows where we, yeah, there you go. Where we've used the gouache, you always want to work with a damp brush and kind of blot the excess off, because gouache will dry and stick in things really easily.
Quickly.
You also want to use a synthetic brush, because if you use a natural hair brush, that is just gonna, it's like putting super glue in something and expecting you're gonna get it out. You're not. All right.
Have you talked about best brushes to use?
We just talked
Okay.
about best brushes to use just then.
Okay, I was
You
reading.
definitely want to use synthetic brushes with this. All right, so the next one we're going to do is the pastel color family. That was a rabbit that the joke is looks like the evil bunny rabbit. Katie shakes her head, yes. That's all done in all of their pastel colors. So we'll just show them just really quickly so you can see how nicely they pop on black. And they're super opaque. This was like a one coat deal with this, even with the white. Just gonna do 3 colors. There's a lovely lavender, a kind of yellow that they call enamel. Let's do the lime, I like the lime.
Can you real quick go over the substrates that you're using on this episode for the YouTube viewers
Okay.
who missed it?
Yes, what we're showing this on, just so you can see what the opacity is we've got some of the Stonehenge black paper, and then we've got it's just a Soho canvas papered board for the white. And those are the surfaces, so that you can see what the opacity is on straight white and on something that's very, very black. See, that covers the black really, really well with that, just a little bit of that pastel. All right, now we're going to try the lavender. Love that on the black. Wow. It's nice and bright. And then the lime. Nice. Okay, so those are the pastels family. They have multiple families within the colors themselves, and then just a ton of straight colors. The last one we're going to look at with this is, before we talk about the Japonesque, is the LeMay colors. Now LeMay is exactly what it sounds like. Sparkly, shiny.
1980s workout attire?
Yes. Flashed out because it doesn't come to mind. I don't know what does. All right, so, and let's see, I've got, these have LeMay on them. See the sparkle there? You can really, I'm gonna do this. Oh yeah, there we go. You can really see the sparkle. And then this one is very obvious because it's over the matte. See the sparkle on there? The LeMay is basically very small glitter, which I know is the bane of the art world, but it's contained in this, right? So it's an easy way to put glitter only where you want, even more so than glitter glue. So it's in that nice resin that gives it the shine and the refraction. All right. So let's see what those look like, because since these are glitter and then they're on in just the resin, colored resin, it's going to look very different on the black. Let's do, I've got a pink, I'm doing a blue diamond, and let's see. Let's do the LeMay gold. All right. So we've got the pink here. And see, you can see that the actual resin itself is tinted, but then all of the sparkles in it are actually pink. So you can really see the sparkles on the black. Can you guys see that? On my screen it's really hard to tell, but I can see it really clearly. Oh, now I can see the sparkles on there. Okay. All right, so the blue, let's see what that does. Blue sparkly. Now this is just one coat, so you can build up 2, 3, you know, even more coats very easily. All right, and this is the gold. The gold has a clear resin base, but then it's all gold sparkles. And they've got, I don't even know how many different clear diamond, silver, gold. You can really see the gold on there. Wow. Okay. So that is the LeMay family of their colors. So great for decorative stuff, great for like journaling and things like that, because even though it's shiny, there's not enough resin in it where when you close those pages on each other, they're going to crack. Okay, so now we're to the Japonesque.
What people keep asking the difference
Oh.
between how that's different. The
okay.
block
All right.
on one side and like a soft body.
Good question. People are asking what the difference is between acrylic and what the difference is between the actual acryl gouache. This side is acryl gouache. See how black and velvety it is? You're not getting any of that shine. You can see over here, you're getting, do you know what this side was? That's the shinier side?
I do believe it's actually the Liquitex.
Like basics or regular?
I think it's
Like the soft body?
yeah.
It looks kind of like
That or
soft
the
body.
gouache, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So here we've got the Turner, right? So you can see how opaque that pink fluorescent is over that. And you can also see that the white's pretty opaque here. Then over here, we've got just a regular traditional acrylic. It's black, but it's definitely not this beautiful velvet black. And then when you angle the sides, see how you're getting that sheen off of it? And the whites are definitely not opaque. You would have to do multiple coats of that over that black. And you can't see that from here, but this has a huge glump. Whoever painted this did not paint it as thin as this one. There is a big giant glump, but you can still see black through it. So even with it being way thicker, it is still not opaque. And it's the same on the whites too. So that's the biggest difference. So if you're looking for that really rich matte, and I can also tell you that this is a lot less material, that's because this is thinned down, so it's not using as much paint actually as the regular acrylic. All right, and I need to not reach that far over again. That hurt. All right, so with this being said, and with us looking at all these, and we'll show the Japonesque next to it, but I don't know if it's going to be something where people can see it super easy. They have a specific line that's called Japonesque. Now what that is if you know very much about Japanese art, it's always taken from nature, right? The colors, you don't get the screaming bright fire, engine reds in Japanese artwork. You get a more subdued natural red. You don't get, just all of those colors that tend to be Western world colors, neons, all those things you're not getting in the traditional Japanese colors in the ranges. So what they've done is they've made a range that's called Japonesque. It's all very natural. So if it's a violet, it's a very natural violet. If it's a red, it's a very natural red. If it's a yellow, it's a super natural, the yellows that you would see in nature, not something like Hansa, which is, up your nose yellow, essentially. Then they've done something that is more unique in that they've made a grind that's super thick by comparison to how fine this lays down. It's got a little bit of texture in it. To me, it reminds me of textured or the colored gessos. Wouldn't you say, Katie? Like when Matisse had the colored gessos, where it was a nice flat color, but it had that little bit of thickness, a little bit of a grit to it, so that when you layered other colors over it, it would grab on really nicely. Because traditionally paint wasn't, you know, ground down to nothing like the regular Turner is. It's very silky smooth. So all these colors, we'll put some out. Like this is a grayish purple. So instead of it just being purple, this is a grayish purple. I'm going to put them here and then we'll paint them on the black and the white. And they've got a whole line that's just this. Now, can you use them with each other? Yes, you can. This is Japonesque Pale Pink. The difference is there will be some slight textural difference. This is the Japonesque Gray, and they've got a bunch of cool and warm grays. They're really natural, really beautiful colors in this line. Now, I've also included, I'm going to show two of their metallics, because although they do metallics, they're grittier, so it doesn't have quite that as much. It's got refraction, but it's got a little bit of texture with it. So this is the Japonesque Blue Gold, and then this is the Japonesque Silver. Okay. So here we've got that grayish purple. Look how nice and smooth that is, and it's a very natural color. It's not, you know, grape ape purple from the Laugh Olympics. Probably the ladies here won't get that reference. If you're my age, you will. You guys have no clue, do you? That's okay. All right, and this is that pale pink. So you can see with the texture, it performs a little bit better on the white versus the black. Because the texture is a little grittier, it's going to not be quite as super smoothly opaque over a really dark color. Unless you're painting it thicker. I'm trying to paint it very thin so you can really see that true performance of it. The gray works really nicely. All right, now let's look at the golds. That actually has got a little bit better coverage with the black. That's nice. All right, so there's that gold. And here's that silver. Okay. So it's hard for you guys probably to see that the performance is just slightly different. The gold and silver, the metallics, look like it's slightly more opaque on that really dark color for me as it's starting to dry than it is probably just with that texture. And the resin, it probably doesn't give it quite as much space in between the particles. And then these are not quite as opaque. But that gives you kind of a difference in all the different lines to see kind of, and these have gotten really shiny now that that resin is dried. Let me see if I can tilt this one. Let's see if we can see those sparkles in there. Let's see if we can do the black. If you watch right here, see that? Look at that. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I've got a question about the texture of the paper. Does it matter if the surface that you're painting on is smoother or if it's rougher, or is that just a matter of personal preference?
Okay, so the question's about paper texture. Something that is smoother is obviously the paint is going to lay down and be smoother. Something that's texture, just like if you paint on really rough linen, you're going to see that texture through it, because remember, you're reducing this for 2 parts paint, 1 part water. So it's going to be very smooth across whatever surface you have. So it's going to very much show whatever texture you're actually working on, which, you know, most people already have textures that they like, so knock yourself out. That doesn't matter. It's still going to be matte, right? Unless it's one of these ones like the Pearl or the LeMay. So that's going to give you that sparkle in some places where you're going to be able to see the texture more. So if you're wanting to do, you know, reproductions like illustrations and things like that, or something where you're going to scan it in and use it in a design program really easily, you may want to err on the side of caution and use something super smooth so you don't have that texture showing up for that, if that makes sense. Okay, so there's some people who really think that this is more of a craft paint, just because of the matteness of it, because you're thinning it down. And I really honestly don't feel like that could be further from the truth. This is something that people just aren't used to. Just like people weren't used to, unless you worked in a design application, seeing watercolor gouache, design gouache work, right? When you think of watercolor, you always think of those really rich, vibrant, jewel-like tones that you have that depth that you see through. So don't pawn this off as a non kind of serious art application. So much so that, so Northlight Books does a competition every year for different media, right? So Acrylic Work 6. I decided to see really if gouache could be taken seriously in something. And I'm here to tell you that all those lines that we just showed, put this here in case anything's, you can use. I've got in this one alone, the pearl color, that's kind of that pretty indigo that we showed is in the background. There's some paper texture. There is the pearl in this. There's also an interference over it. There's the LeMay all around here, all over the eyelids. There's some gold. And then there's just some of the matte colors. That is something that can be taken seriously as fine art, even with mixed media. It just goes to prove it's the work that you do. It's not necessarily the medium. And some people, it's hard for them to get past that. They want to use only the traditional stuff, just like people want to say, but I'm only working in water mixable oils. It's still oils, guys. There's no like, oh, I'm sorry, this can't be taken seriously as fine art. All right. So what we're going to be doing this work with next week is the Smart Set of 12. So we're going to look at this really quick, and then we'll work on a sketch of an eye. So this is the box for it. This is one I've already got, so I can cut.
I was gonna come open it for you.
Yeah, I can get the things. I just couldn't get the sleeve off with one hand. Okay. So it's got a nice size, 2 nice size whites in it. If you can pop that in from above. Oh, there we go. Here we go. 2 nice size whites. It's got a palette cleaner, which if you've ever used this, you know is going to come in handy because it sticks on and it's hard to even soak off, just because that pigment in the resins, which is great in that that's why you can paint on things like glass and plexiglass and stuff like that. But this palette cleaner will take the stuff off. It's got a violet burnt umber. It's got a cobalt blue, a sky blue, a jet black. Sorry, I'm trying to put reading glasses on. Permanent red, permanent scarlet, permanent yellow deep, permanent lemon, permanent green light, and a permanent green middle. All in the set. So 12 colors with an extra white and a palette cleaner. It's got all of these brushes, so it gives you nice synthetic gold Taklon brushes that are perfect to use with it. It also gives you a rag, so it's easy to blot the excess water out since you're mixing a lot more water in than most people are used to with acrylics. And then it's got this color mixing guide. Okay, these are cards that only these 12 colors are used, but with those 12 colors, try to stretch out so I can hold it. You can make 120 colors. Now, that doesn't mean you're limited to these 120 colors, because then you can do tints and shades of it, right? Add more white to get things lighter, some, black to make gray values of these, but you can make all of that with this set. So the beauty of this is, if you're stuck and you don't know what color to use or how to mix the color, because we all will sit and go, oh, I got no clue how to make that. Well, guess what? If I've got my eye here and I say, wow, I need a flesh tone right in here, that's pretty close, right? So you just flip that over and it says 10 parts burnt sienna to, burnt sienna 1 part to 20 parts white makes that color. So it's like this great little cheat sheet that you can use to help yourself. See how there's these colors in here, colors in there. It's got 120 colors that you can find one that looks like one of the colors that you need for something.
And if you already have the Turner Gouache set, any of the sets, you can buy that mixing guide individually. It's only $6.29.
So there you go. Now there's no guarantee the set you have has those specific 12 colors, but I think that's something where most of the sets have the basic ones, and then as the numbers go up, they add on some different colors. But, I mean, you may need 1 or 2 other ones, and that's it. So this is like your best friend cheat sheet helper for being able to use these colors and really, work really well. Now, sometimes, and we'll see this next week when we work, it's really hard to get the hang of eyeballing proportions. So sometimes while you're learning, it's okay to just take a little brush stroke of colors and add a little bit more of one color in than squirt a whole bunch out, because I'm telling you, this isn't like traditional acrylics. You can mist this while you work, but it will still want to dry on you. And the more you mist it, the more you can make it so that it's more and more unstable, right? Because you're putting a lot more water in those resins and breaking down the resin with the pigment. So then when you put other layers on it, if you've made it too thin, they'll want to lift. So that's something you need to be aware of. Using less paint is more, right? You'll get more out of it. You won't waste a bunch. So that's what we'll be using for next week while we do this. Really quick, we're going to talk about eyes, and we're going to talk about kind of some of the things that you need to do to troubleshoot drawing them. Eyes are the thing, I mean, noses are hard too, mouths are hard, but because of all the multiple variables that you're dealing with in an eye, it's something that people are very kind of stressed out about and confused about. And if you haven't watched any of our drawing episodes, I really urge you in the meantime to go back and review those, especially the episode where we talk about breaking things down into shapes. I don't know which episode that is. Thank you. If one of you guys can check the drawing episodes. Break those down into shapes. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, we talk about getting, a really good representation of something is as much about the observation as it is about the actual drawing. Now, in looking at these 2 eyes, there's something I want everybody to notice. This is a younger person. This is an older person. How can I tell that? This person has a little bit of wrinkles. This person has a little bit too, but everybody has a little bit of wrinkles unless they're a brand new, very young little child, or they're still a toddler and they have that kind of little fatty face that keeps everything nice and smooth. You can tell by the brow here. Notice how the brow is much more pronounced. The eye here is more sunken. See how there's still really kind of much tighter skin here? You see a lot more of this area. you see a lot more of this area. This area you can see all the way back into the skin. Look at how much more hollow this is here. How you've really got, because you lose a lot of this tone, the collagen in the skin right in here. So whatever the brow is, you will start to get the overlap, right, of this skin coming down over it. In here you do see some wrinkles. It's not so bad here, but you can tell just by the color and the texture, and how the texture is much more gritty, where this is much smoother. You can even see little baby hairs in here. I've posted both these pictures in the Jerry's Live Facebook group, so you can pull those down and print them out and use these to work on. I think I'm going to use this one because I like the color of the eye, and I like the variables of kind of teaching you guys how to shade in here, and it's going to be a little bit more challenging for me to get the colors out here, where when we were just looking at that color guide, you guys saw that there were a lot of colors that kind of matched this more youthful pink, you know, coloration here. So, but I wanted to give you guys this because you can actually kind of, you know, if you'd rather do the brown eye where it's a little easier, that is perfectly fine. So now, as we go to want to actually look at this for drawing, this is something that everybody needs to pay attention to. This is not a shape where it's just like this, okay? Everybody always wants to turn it into an almond and move on. It's just, you draw what you think you know, you don't draw what you see, right? So you want to notice that this comes down in here. There is a membrane here. The eye, that white doesn't extend to in here. There's membranes that kind of help snug in and keep this protected so that it's not just this ball floating that you can jab way into the back of. Notice how the eye comes right up against there, but this is the actual edge of that eyelid right here. This is a plane here, and if you're not certain about that, get somebody at home and look at their, have them turn, look at their face from different angles, look at their eye from different angles. The eyelashes don't come right up to this. There's actually that buffer. Ladies, if you wear eyeliner, you know this, because some of you will draw that right on there, that color on. Huh?
The waterline.
Yep. So that's something that you need to make sure that you save room for. Don't put these eyelashes right up against the eye. That's something people don't notice, but if you do it wrong, they notice because it looks wrong. They don't know why. This skin does not overlap in a big piece. This comes to here, and there's actually a hard line edge here where those folds come. So you don't want the eye to end in kind of that sharp shape. Up here you've got the same thing where you've got that little kind of thickness of the eyelid, but it's much more underneath that brow where these eyelashes come in. This is another indicator of youth versus someone that's older and more mature. Look at how many eyelashes this person has, and they are not fake, ladies, right? Because we all know if we're over 30, and it gets worse after 40, you start losing a lot of your eyelashes, right? It's not anything you can do anything about. It's just, that happens. The same with eyebrow hair. So that is another indicator that this person is younger. All right? Now, if we look at this eye, we can see that same thing. There's not that piece there, okay? It doesn't come down to a point. There's that piece. This is easier to see, this kind of thickness of tissue, because the eye is pulled back further. You can actually see that at that angle. You can definitely see it here at this angle. Notice that you can see that tissue in there, the membranes that hold that all together. Pop quiz, science, because just science is always fun. What's the difference between brown and blue eyes? Does anybody know?
Is it the thickness of the actual cornea, like you're seeing through one of them?
No, but that's a good guess. That's a very good guess. She said the thickness of the actual cornea.
Like the stuff
How
inside
about
the
10,000 years ago, we all had brown eyes? What happened is, through just a mutation, these little parts, the pigment, the striations here began to lose the melanin. Melanin creates this color, right? And melanin is generally is what we tan with, right? It's the coloration. We don't tan blue, we tan dark. Some of us, Frida doesn't. That's why Frida has blue eyes. So what happened is there's a loss of this melanin up here, right? So the lighter the blue eye, the less the melanin that you've got, okay? So it reaches those strand cells underneath and they reflect light back as blue. So how crazy is that? And with green eyes, hazel eyes, gray eyes, it's somewhat less refraction than that blue. So it's closer to the brown, but it's not the same. So a genetic mutation gave us the beauty of blue eyes. Some of you were lucky like that. So when you do this, it's not just a solid color. Now this brown, because it's got more melanin, you don't see a lot of those striations, right? In there. You see a little bit. You see a little bit of gold and some kind of maybe a little browner, kind of orangier colors. But look at this blue eye. See how you see all those striations? It's very light, and then it's got that little bit of brown around it where you've got the pupil. Okay? So this is something that would be a little bit more fun to me because you make that darker and then you go back in and do your lighter colors. All right. So notice the younger you are, that sclera. Sclera is this membrane over the white part of your eye. Notice how you see a little bit of blood vessels, but they're much paler, pinker. See how much more pronounced they are as you get older. And a lot of times that white starts kind of bluing, right? It's never really white. This is not white. This is very kind of ivory and a little pinky. This is much, much bluer. So you're going to want to pay attention to that when you're painting it. You don't want that to be a solid color because that does not give that form. Okay, so we'll talk about that when we do that. All right, so that's also the part that gets when you get pink eye. All right, do we want to do a drawing of the eye real quick, or how are we on time? Are we?
Got about we started a little bit late. So
Okay.
like
all right, we'll do a
left.
quick sketch.
I do have a quick question
Yes.
while you're getting that started. Susan Zimmerman would like to know if you can use a retarder with the acrylic gouache.
Okay, so the question is, can you use a retarder with acrylic gouache? And the answer is you can. You can use a retarder with any acrylic medium. That's the short answer. Long answer is any medium that you add into acrylic gouache makes it less opaque, makes it dry hella slower. And one of the things that this is the benefit of acrylic gouache, right, is that it dries really quick, that you can keep working continually. What happens with retarder? You're at the mercy of whatever your humidity level is wherever you're at that given time, right? Okay, so I know that was hyperbole, but seriously, just because it exists doesn't mean you have to use it. Look at what your needs are, right? Look at what your desires are. Look at what the working properties of a medium is and see if that's going to be for you. You know, if you're wanting to add retarder to this may not be the medium for you because all the beautiful things that make it very different from traditional acrylics are going to get botched up by adding that medium in with it.
you put acrylic.
And it's not, it's more, I'd rather you know the bad truth and not waste money investing in something and then hate it because it's taking, like, drying way too fast for you, and then when you're adding something to it to slow it down, then it's not giving you the good things of the medium, right? Can we back out just a little bit because I cannot lean over this. I will tear my shoulder up. All right, that's good.
You may need
I can
to
move that up a little. Is that
Possible
good?
to use a darker pencil?
I'm gonna
If
use a
you're
4B.
not far. Okay.
So it should, okay. So I'm gonna draw it a little bit larger than it really is. I'm wanting to pay good attention to kind of where this sits in the brow. I'm wanting to pay attention to those shapes and how they relate to each other. If you're somebody that really needs to, it's okay to draw kind of those imaginary lines through the pupil as a grid and then kind of work out from there so you can see where that's going to fall. Because this is opaque, you can paint over it really easy, right? Working lines are fine because you're using something that's opaque. All right, so I'm gonna verify kind of where my point of reference is here in the eye. Something to note, anytime you're working on an eye, some people have a really dark outline around their iris, right? And some people don't. That has a lot to do with health issues. A lot of people don't know that, but the darker it is and the more pronounced, a lot of times you can have all sorts of like deficiencies, mineral deficiencies and things like that. All right, here, this is higher here than over here. Now I'm drawing it to how I see it. There will be shadows that will make this like drop away, and it's gonna look very flat until we go to do that paint for next week, okay? So again, this is not, can they see it? Is this dark enough for them? Mm-hmm. Ladies, find out, make sure. This is lower over here than it is up here. If I've got my pencil through that and got my straight line, see how much lower this is here as compared to this side? How dark is this one? Oh, 7B, we'll do that, all right. And this does not come straight down. This part comes straight down on that outer part of the lid, but the membrane actually comes and drops down. So I'm gonna bring this down like that, then I'm going to drop that inner line down like this. This is at an angle here. This actually comes lower and then this drops down. So I'm looking at just the shape, okay? That comes like that. There's a little bit there. Now I'm gonna worry about where this line for that upper lid comes, where the eyelashes are coming out of it. This all will disappear in the paint, but I just want that on there so I can really see, because this is thinner here than it is over here for me. Okay, so that continues on. There's this area that I'm just ghosting in, so I know kind of, I'm leaving myself a visual note where this color is going to be here. Okay, here is a little bit of a wrinkle there that kind of continues this shape around, so I'm going to put that there. Eyelashes kind of are here, so I'm going to put that on there just so I've got kind of those visual notes. And drawings always look really weird versus the color, so, you know, don't worry about that. You're not making this perfect. There's no reason for this to be perfect right now. We're just making it so we've got good visual notes, so when we go to paint, I'm going to do this because I want to kind of know where that darker blue, those lines are. Don't, for crying out loud, sit and do all those little lines in here. You're going to paint over that. Don't worry about that. You can leave yourself notes in the paint. Don't sit and draw those. That's not important. Now I'm going to look at here where this comes in under that brow of the skull, okay? It comes at an angle. It's much closer here than it is up here. Actually, it's got some shine to it. Oh, it's much further up. I've got an angle with that paper where the ink's got some shine. All right, so, and then this comes more like that in. Okay, I will have this tiny little bit of eyebrow there, and then it will come in like that. Over here, there's this nice dip where it's gonna visually come down under. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in. Even though that's color, it'll be colorized later. Just for the notes for myself, and then this, I'm gonna put a very light line where that shadow is gonna kinda come around. Okay? No reason to put eyelashes in right now because we need to do the painting under it before we put those on. No reason to put the shadow in here yet we're just gonna leave this as is. We've got our iris, our pupil here. We've got the basic shape of the things we need. I can go back. This looks like this could drop down more from here. So I'm gonna make that correction. So that would also move that further down. Okay? So this is our eye for us for next week. And it's, I'm sorry, it's a little bit lighter than I realized. Is it pretty good in your monitor?
Yeah, it's a little
This
better.
monitor is kind of light. Okay. Okay, so this is what we will be working on next week. When I do this, I'm going to set it up very similar to a cooking show, because even though this stuff dries very fast, the likelihood that I'm still going to be wearing this attractive apparatus is high. So it's going to be where I'll do it in stages. We'll start it together from this drawing, so go ahead and get your drawing ready. You can use whatever size panel you want. You can use gesso paper. You can do whatever. If you don't have anything other than the black and the white, feel free to do a gray value if you want, or play along with watercolor, acrylic, or whatever. Whatever medium you're using, we're still painting an eye, and it's going to be similar if you're using more of an opaque type of a paint, okay? So we'll start with this. I'll have the next section to say, okay, so you would have reached this point, we'll add on, this point we'll add on, so that we can make sure we get the cool little kind of sparkly parts of the eye and all that good stuff in, and get to eyelashes and all that. Okay? Any last questions that anybody has about any of the stuff that we've gone over? I appreciate you guys being cool about letting us do this in 2 episodes, because in some ways I think it's better because you learned a little bit more about the medium if you haven't seen a lot of our shows, which if you're curious about the Turner Acryl Gouache and want more answers, we've done multiple other episodes on it. At the top, pinned at the top of both of the chats and in the descriptions, right, there's always the link to our documents. That has a list of all the shows that we've done. One is chronological, the other one is by topic. So you'll be able to go back and look in the acrylic section or gouache section or wherever we've labeled it, usually in both, and actually learn a little bit more about the acrylic gouache if you'd like prior to when we do this next week. Now, you may still have time if you don't have a smart set to get one. Right now they're $24.99 and it ships free. Okay, so it's on special and it ships free. So you can get it if you order it like quickly and you're not across the country and it doesn't take forever. If you're concerned about ship times, you can always call customer service during business hours and they can give you a good indication of whether it will get there in time.
There's a map on the website
Yes.
as well, on the shipping page
Yes.
on the website.
So on shipping on the website, you can also check that as well. So there's still a way to get that, or if you've got a local Jerry's, they've got it. It's just not that price, and it doesn't ship free. So, any last questions, ladies? Were we good? Everybody's all ready to go. So next week, so practice your drawing. If anybody has any problems, post in the Jerry's Live group and tag me, so I'll see it. And we will go from there and do the eye next week. All right? Have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.